last night there was a tragic, a horrific shooting in Washington, D.C. A young couple, Yaron Leshinsky and Sarah Milgram, were gunned down at just outside an American Jewish Committee event at the Jewish Museum by some guy named Elias Rodriguez, who chanted as he shot at them, and later when he was arrested by police, "Free, free Palestine." As I think others have noted online, this is what you get when you globalize the Intifada. The Intifada is about killing Jews. The Intifada is about violence. The Intifada is about slaughtering and killing and destroying. When students and other demonstrators all over the United States and all over the world really talk about globalizing Intifada, this is what it looks like. It looks like somebody coming up with a gun and shooting people, shooting innocent civilians. Now, it happens that these two that he shot were working at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., but I don't think that's why he shot them. I don't think he knew that they were embassy workers. He shot them because they were Jews. He shot them because they were attending a Jewish event. People can claim that what is going on is protests against Israel. But globalizing the Intifada, the kind of slogans, the kind of language, the kind of activity that these protests involve, this is way beyond criticizing Israel. This is a call to murder Jews. This is an ancient anti-Semitic call to slaughter anybody who could be deemed to be Jewish. Remember, Hitler didn't care if you called yourself Jewish or not. Hitler didn't care if you were technically a Jew or not based on rabbinical, standards. All Hitler cared is you had some Jewish blood, whatever the hell that means. Of course, people are already out there on Twitter, either praising the killing and blaming Jews in Israel for the killing, or like Nick Fuentes, calling it a false flag, an excuse to do away with free speech and diplomacy. Oops, what happened here? This is not what's supposed to be here. Yeah, or the Bronx Anti-War Coalition, right? This is the Bronx Anti-War Coalition. These are the people that organize pro-Palestinian rallies in New York City. Just a few minutes ago, what Ilya Rodriguez did is the highest expression of anti-Zionism. It's the highest expression, true, of anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism. It's the higher expression of hatred. So, somebody goes up and shoots a couple of Jews. Somebody goes up and shoots the CEO of a pharmaceutical company. And there are people in our society, people in our culture, that jump at the opportunity to praise such a person. We are now in a period of legitimized political violence. Not political violence against candidates, presidential candidates, although of course we did see a couple of assassination attempts against Donald Trump, but political violence in the name of a variety of different causes. And there's a public call for this violence. Remember, every time you see globalize the Intifada, what they really mean is slaughter Jews worldwide. What they really mean is suicide bombings. Really what they mean, if they expanded beyond Jews, is 9/11. And these people are going to be made into heroes. because, as they said, this is the ultimate form of anti-Zionism. This is the best. This is the ultimate. Globalizing Intifada and these rallies and these demonstrations and these riots at universities and on our streets and in the streets of London, these are all, by the way, important to note, funded by the Qataris, by Qatar, who Donald Trump just visited, who want to give him a $400 million plane, who have basically bought out our universities and trying to buy out our press and are bribing our politicians all the way up to the White House. This idea of globalizing the Intifada is well backed, well funded, well supported, and legitimized. And part of the legitimacy is the way our media covers the news. When Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro was nearly assassinated, burned alive in his bed on Passover, because he's Jewish, the press barely covered it. Barely covered it. But what did they cover? What does the press cover all the time? It covers the so-called genocide in Gaza. It covers the evil of the Israelis and the nobility of the Palestinians. Constant stories about, 14,000, here's a headline from NBC News, around 14,000 babies could die in the next 48 hours if many more aid trucks do not reach Gaza, the UN's humanitarian chief says. Well, Jews are killing babies. Ooh, that sounds familiar. Isn't that a blood libel from the Dark Ages, Middle Ages? Yeah. Jews killing babies has a lot of emotional power. And that's NBC. That's not just some, radical, way out, far left or far right publication. If you endlessly tell people out there, Jews are killing babies, Jews are killing babies, Jews are killing tens of thousands, 14,000 babies. Now, I'm willing to bet all of the money I own, the 14,000 babies will not die in 48 hours. It doesn't take much journalistic integrity to realize that that is a fake news. Does anybody complain? Has anybody complained? No. So, the left hates Israel. By extension, now hates Jews. Globalize the Intifada is their new slogan. Now, it's not all the left, but certainly the far left. It's it's not a surprise that some crazy nut decides to go and do something about it. When a crazy person like Kanye West can put out a song called Heil Hitler, and people are listening to it. People are not shunning it. People are not boycotting it. People are listening to it. And Kanye still makes the news on a regular basis. When prominent figures like Candace Owen and Joe Rogan excuse Kanye's behavior or praise him as a free speech advocate. He said Heil Hitler and he got away with it. Wow. We're normalizing anti-Semitism. We're normalizing hatred of Jews for being Jews. We're normalizing violence against them. And again, the left and the right, they don't care. I haven't seen Candace Owen yet on this shooting, but I'm sure she'll blame Israel. I'm sure she'll blame Jews. The Iranians that were captured here in the United Kingdom, plotting terrorist attacks in the United Kingdom, and they were recently arraigned in front of a court. They didn't care about whether they were attacking Israeli institutions or Jewish institutions, including kindergartens. They openly call for attacking Zionists worldwide. But what do they mean by that? All Jews are Zionists in their view, and therefore all are legitimate targets. When we morally equate Israel and Hamas, we again normalize misinformation, fake news, and hatred. And you can see this on again, we don't have to recount the Tucker Carlson interviewing the idiot who thinks Churchill was worse than Hitler. Hitler wasn't that bad. Hitler didn't mean to kill all the Jews. And Joe Rogan then follows up, interviews the same person. It really is a dangerous period. And if you're Israeli, if you're Jewish, it's scary out there. Do you speak Hebrew in the street? When you're in a taxi cab or Uber, often in Europe, driven by Arabs, you don't know what kind of an Arab, what their belief system is. Often they're not Arab, sometimes they're South Asians, but they're often Muslim. How do you know? If you speak Hebrew, what's the driver going to do? Take you to a back alley and shoot you? I mean, probably not, but how do you know? Now, all of this just reinforces one thing, and that is the need for a state like the State of Israel. Today, almost half the Jews in the world live in Israel. And it goes up a little bit every year, where, at least to some extent, they're protected by a military force. But more than that, it's a place where they can defend themselves, fight the injustices. And, there needs to be a state where Jews can escape to, where they won't find anti-Semitism. Now, the challenge in Israel is that because of Israel's weakness, as we've discussed many, many times, it hasn't created the safe space that it should. It's allowed Hamas and others to gain power and to gain the ability to inflict violence on Israel. But we're still seeing Houthi missiles targeted at Israel. But at least there's a place to escape. Now, I don't consider myself Jewish. I don't think of myself as Jewish. There's nothing Jewish about my behavior, my ideas, my thoughts, my beliefs. I'm not religious. I didn't raise my kids to be Jewish. They know almost nothing about Judaism and about what it means to be Jewish. I don't care if they marry non-Jews. But at times like this, I know that the world out there doesn't care if I think of myself as Jewish or not. All they care is if my DNA shows a Jewish heritage, a Jewish bloodline. And it does. All they care about is that I speak Hebrew, born in Israel. My parents consider themselves Jews. They're Ashkenazi Jews. My wife's parents consider themselves Jewish. At times like this, it doesn't matter what I think of myself. It matters what the world thinks of me. When they come gunning for me, they won't ask me, Yaron, how seriously do you take your Judaism? No. They'll say, your name is Yaron, that's an Israeli name, bullet to the head. Nobody asked the Jews who were led into the gas chambers if they considered themselves Jewish. Many of them did not. Many of them were fully assimilated into German, Polish, Austrian, Czech societies. They were killed nonetheless, because they had a grandparent who the Germans identified as Jewish. So it doesn't matter how any of us define what a Jew is. The only thing that matters is how the bad guys define what a Jew is and what they're going to do about it. And as long as there's violence against Jews for being Jews, or for being Jews according to the definition of those who want to define them as such, whether they acknowledge it or not, as long as there are people willing to kill people because of their collective identity, which is false. There is no such thing as a collective identity. Those people need to defend themselves. And the only way to defend themselves, the only way Jews can defend themselves in this crazy world, I used to think just emigrate to America. But think of the synagogue in, Pennsylvania a few years ago, where some nut decided Jews were responsible for illegal immigration, so he went and shot up a synagogue. Think of the guy today. Now this is still small, but think of all the people defending them. Think of the demonstrators in the street shouting Intifada, Globalize the Intifada. Think about the Candace Owen and Tucker Carlson. These are not trivial figures. They're not mainstream, but they have millions of followers. Would you be safe if, some of the most influential people in our culture were advocating subtly, not explicitly, in various ways, that you, because of who your grandparents were, are somehow bad, somehow evil, somehow it truly is stunning that in my lifetime, it hasn't really surprised me, because I always knew that this was really the purpose of the State of Israel. This is really why it exists. It exists for the self-defense of people considered Jews, because nowhere else will take them. That history has shown us. Until the world becomes more rational, until the world, until humanity grows up, until humanity embraces individualism and liberty and freedom and capitalism, Jews aren't safe. That's what history has taught us. Jews are not safe. So yeah, they need a state. And that state needs to be strong. And it needs to defeat its enemies. And yeah, in an ideal world, in that world of capitalism and individualism and liberty and freedom, you wouldn't need an Israel. And it wouldn't exist. But that world doesn't exist. That world doesn't exist. So yes, I completely support the State of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state, not so much as a Jewish state internally in terms of its internal laws, but as a place where Jews can escape to, always, and where they will be protected, always.